Everybody, welcome back to my Daily Dose with Tim. Today is Season 2, Episode 6. We're in Week 2 of Season 2 already, and this week it's all going to be about why investing in real estate as a vehicle to help us generate monthly cash flow as well as long-term wealth. And this is one of the biggest lessons that I've actually learned from the very beginning. And I must let you know though, in the beginning, the first time I heard this phrase, it sort of made sense, but it didn't just quite click. However, I'm just going to leave that line with you as well, simply because it is something that my mentor taught me from a very early stage. And that is, we buy and sell to create capital so that we can buy and hold to create wealth. Write that down. We buy and sell to create capital so that we can buy and hold to create long-term wealth. And that's the funny thing, is that every single time I come across anybody who wants to invest in real estate, clearly there is a financial destination that they have in mind. It's about what real estate and the wealth and the cash flow that it's going to generate for them is going to do for them in their lives. However, I've also come across a lot of people, they tend to play on the safe side. And that's the funny thing about doing any sort of investment, because honestly though, investing inherently still has risk. There is no such thing as risk-free investment, okay? So just remember that for yourself. And one of the biggest challenges, or one of the biggest fears that I've often come across, is when people say, oh, you know what, I really want to get into real estate. However, I'm really worried that I'm gonna have to deal with tenants, that I'm gonna have to deal with people maybe trashing the property if they don't take care of it. I don't want that kind of headache. And so that's the funny thing, is that, you know what, when we actually teach you how to do it, 9 out of 10 times, we actually do teach you to basically contract it out to a property manager, if not 10 out of 10 times. However, why 9 out of 10? Simply because for a lot of us in the beginning, we do want a little bit of that landlording experience ourselves as well. And that's totally fine as long as the properties is in your market. However, if you're in markets where the cap rate is just completely off and the rental yields are just completely off, and you're forced to go into a different market in order for investing in real estate to really make sense for you, then obviously you want to make sure that you have a local power team who is a property manager to really help you deal with all that. However, let's just kind of strip it back down for a little bit, because I've heard lots of stories, and honestly, I have personal stories as well in terms of tenants not leaving the properties in as good of a shape as when they first moved in there. I've honestly though, over the last decade plus now, I've really only had one tenant, literally one tenant, that actually quote unquote trashed the property. And it wasn't even trash the property. They basically just took the appliances with them. They had young kids there, and the kids were using crayons to draw on the wall. Honestly, nothing a fresh coat of paint couldn't fix, and nothing a trip to the Home Depot or to Best Buy or to an appliance store couldn't fix, okay? So we're not talking about people breaking down walls or anything like that. Yes, it was not immediately rentable as a result, and the carpet was really disgusting and the floor was a little damaged. There's a lot of touch-ups involved. However, that is exactly my point here. So many people, just because of they're afraid that something like that is going to happen to them, what they end up doing is they basically play not to lose. And by playing not to lose, I just simply mean that a lot of people, they put their money into RSPs, into mutual funds, into savings accounts, and GICs, and company stocks. Better yet, they probably even go and buy precious metals. That's all fine. However, at the end of the day, does anybody really have any control in terms of stock value, mutual fund performance, and even how high or how low the price of gold is going to go? No. But when it comes to real estate, let's just say that the worst case scenario happens, okay? Our tenants do not take good care of our properties by the time they move out, by the time you have to vacate them. What can we do? Let's say a fair market value on a property, on a particular property where we just had a tenant moved out and really they left it in a not so desirable condition. and it's, let's say the fair market value is supposed to be $500,000, for example. I mean, if you're in a different market where an average is $1 million, 1.5, doesn't matter. The percentage would be very similar, but the concept is very much there, okay? So $500,000 property, and just because the property's not in good condition, maybe when a realtor is doing an appraisal, because I understand that's sort of knee-jerk reaction for unseasoned and undereducated investor, is that the first trouble, the first sign of challenge that they get, they kind of just bail. They want to get out as soon as possible. Don't do that, and here is why. Okay, if that property is supposed to be worth about $500,000 based on sold comps in that area, and because it's not in good condition, your realtor, when they are doing the evaluation, they're saying, well, you know what, you're at the very best, you're probably going to be asking for about $450,000, $460,000 at this point. You know what? Your heart's probably going to sink a little bit. However, if you hang on to it, let's put it this way. Everything that I just described, honestly though, if it's a lipstick damage, that means a little bit of a lipstick fix is going to do the job. So what I really mean by that is, let's just say if the stock market crashes or your mutual fund crashes, by the way, they're all related. The point is, there is no physically possible way for you to throw money into a company stock and say, please, please let the overall value of my portfolio with you come back up. Whereas when it comes to real estate, you do have the power now to go out and hire a general contractor, or if you want to be your own general contractor, you can hire your own painter, your own flooring guy, you can go and shop for your own appliances, completely up to you, okay? So you actually have the ability to go out there and source all the things that you need, and that means labor and materials, to come back and fix up your property that has dropped in value and bring it back up so that you can get your valuation back in there. Does that suck when it happens? Of course it does. However, does it make you feel better and that you can sleep better, that you can actually have control over the value of the asset that you own? The answer to that question is yes. And that is one of the biggest reasons why we actually really like real estate. Because again, real estate is hard asset. And I know some of you guys at this point want to argue with me once again that, well, gold bar is a hard asset, silver is hard asset. Once again, it comes back down to control. And it's how we maintain control of the value and performance. And guess what? Chances are, after you fix the property up, your value might actually go above market average if you do it right. And as a result, if you continue to rent it out, you might actually be able to attract better tenants, nicer tenants, and higher rent payments as well. And so control isn't just about the value. In this particular case, you might also even be able to control the performance of that asset as well. How cool is that? Okay, and this is why one of the biggest things that we always talk about is when you actually are getting financial education and leveraging real estate as your vehicle, we also say we do not buy pre-sale condos. And control is a big factor in that. And there are typically three main reasons why we don't do that. And number one is simply because, well, with every single condo comes with a condo board. And if you're in certain provinces in the country of Canada where I live, because I understand there's a lot of people from all over the world you're watching this. And so just so you know, I'm from Canada, and if you live in a province called British Columbia, where the city of Vancouver is in, then you have, well, instead of calling a condo board, you actually call it strata. So you would have strata fees, which is usually condo fees. So what that really means is the same dollar amount that you can actually afford to buy a single family detached property. In this case, when you buy a condo, you actually, the math deal analysis is not exactly the same, because after you pay your pity payment, and depending on if you're actually counting your property management, your vacancies, your repair and maintenance, just by the way, I noticed I just said pity payment very quickly. If you want to go back to season 1 and refer to some of the other materials, that'll be great. I'll give you a quick refresher. Pity payment is spelled P-I-T-I. That's principal, interest, property taxes and property insurance, so pity payment, because it's such a pity that you have to pay something on a monthly basis to maintain your asset that's hopefully spitting out cash flow for you. And so in addition to your pity payments in a condo environment, you also need to add in your condo fees as part of your expenses, which means, guess what? It will decrease or completely eat away at your potential cash flow there, leaving you in a very vulnerable position. Number one. Number two, the reason why we say control, control, control is because when you have a condo board or a strata council, you actually have a lot of bylaws that basically determines where the building can go, the performance of the building, and how they're going to spend your condo fees. So what I mean by that is write these two words down. It's called special assessment. So this is usually why, if you really, really, really need to, and again, this is just personal business decisions, we've been directed or really taught to understand and think. And by the way, we still don't buy condos regardless. However, I just want to pass that on to you simply because I understand, depending on where you are from, there might be a small viability where condos might still make sense for you. However, you just need to remember these things. The second thing really is special assessment. So make sure you remember that. So what that really means is we've been taught that if you want to buy into a condo unit, then you want to make sure that you probably buy something anywhere between 2 to 10 years old. Why? Usually the first couple of years when a building is newly built and the condo board is newly formed, they've done their budget in terms of how much overall maintenance is going to cost for the building. However, usually the first 2 years is when the condo fees would go up the most, if not exponentially, simply because the fact that labor goes up, materials go up, and there might be expenses that were not accounted for. Okay, and this is why if you want to buy into a condo building, an existing one especially, you want to make sure that the property management company that's really supporting the condo board is very specialized in managing those buildings. However, at the end of the day, honestly, from me to you, I really, really would highly discourage you from doing that. And this is also the reason why some of the older buildings, and because this is why a lot of amateur investors get hurt, because they focus on how much is it going to cost them to get into buying a property and owning a secondary property or an income property, as some would like to call it, is they purely look at price. And again, as trained investors, we always say it is not about how much is it going to cost to get in, it's how much is going to make you. Okay, however, going back to the point that I'm making with you is simply the fact that older buildings, they tend to be a little cheaper to buy into. Well, because they're a little bit older and probably needs a little bit of work. And that's just it. Older buildings, it's not just about your unit. It's about the general pipes and roofs and walls and everything else that basically gets attached to that whole structure. And if the condo board has not been accumulating or running their reserves properly or the condo funds properly, let's just say that the roof needs to be replaced or the pipes need to be replaced in the building, in the public common area, or they need new windows, they need new walls, exterior painting, whatever the case may be. They can basically get quotes and then all of a sudden slap a special assessment onto every single owner on title to do a cash call. So even if the reserve fund seems to be healthy, sometimes it is just based on the condo board's voting. And so that means you actually don't have a lot of control. And I've seen so many cases where people buy into condo units and they're happy about it for about 2 years, and then all of a sudden, boom, a special assessment comes and it basically eats away at every single penny of cash flow they have made over the previous 2 years, if not worse sometimes. And so that's why we don't encourage you to do that. And there's a third reason right now, which is also relating back to this. Remember, when we're talking about detached properties, it's a lot easier and faster for us to increase value by forced appreciation. In some markets, yes, you are able to do that. However, you gotta remember, in most condo developments, typically speaking, the floor plans are fairly cookie cutters. And so what I mean by that is, let's just say that you have a really nice 2-bedroom, 1-bath unit right now in whatever city that you are in. However, think about how many other similar units and with the same size, similar configuration that you have. And so some people will say, hey, you know what? I'm going to put in $20,000, $30,000 and make it really, really great. And it's going to be way better than the next unit. Okay? And by the time I'm going to list and sell it, guess what? If there's another unit that has similar size and similar configuration as yours, you're probably not get your money back. And that's what we mean by that, again, in terms of control as well. And so these are the 3 factors that I want you guys to think about, especially for those of you who purely solely focus on how much is it going to cost me to get into. Again, Financial Education 101, it's all about the return, because you get into investing to make money. So please, please don't let that be the main reason why you buy a property. Always focus on the end goal, which is how much it's going to make me. And in our world, how much is it going to make me is actually measured by 2 different criteria. Number 1 is definitely cash flow, because you do not want to expose yourself to risk. You want to minimize that risk as much as you possibly can. And by doing so, you're treating it like a viable business. And number 2, obviously, is the overall profit that you're going to make. And so there are other factors that will be involved in it, which we will cover as we go through the season as well. So this is part 1 of why investing in real estate for this week. I'm going to be coming back over the next few days now again to really cover off some of the other factors as well, in terms of why we actually really like real estate as opposed to other assets and asset classes. And so stick with us, stick with me, and so happy for you to be joining me on a Monday here today. And depending on when you're watching this, I really, really appreciate the comments, the feedback, and the likes and the shares that you guys have been doing for me. And that's really the message that I want to put out there. Thank you, and have a great night, and live well. I will see you tomorrow.